Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about the evolution of my budgeting system. A lot of you guys ask me all the questions of like, well, how do you do this and why do you have this and this and that? And today I'm going to show you how, or just show you my budgeting system as it progressed through the years. When I first started, I had a legal yellow pad. If you guys remember that, that was my budgeting system. It was a legal pad with the pages that would flip overhead, and I would do my budgets that way. And I remember getting that from work. This was my first official professional job right out of college. So I got that from a coworker who was clearing out the desk that I was going to be at, and he found it. And he's like, "Hey, you want this?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll keep it." And I ended up using that for my budgeting system for a majority of the time. So, when I first started budgeting, I started with the Dave Ramsey baby steps. I found him, if you guys don't know, he's a financial person out here on YouTube, and he's very, well known in the budgeting community because of his baby steps. And if you guys don't know what his baby steps are, is that first you need to catch up on your bills, which is basically baby step 0. Catch up on your lights, on your rent or something like that. Anything that you have going on that keeps you sheltered and fed. That is your priority, to catch up on that. Then is to do the whole first baby step, which is have $1,000 in your bank account for any small emergency that you might come up with within your journey. Then you have to pay your debt. You start your debt snowball. That is baby step 2, which technically sometimes lasts longer than any of the steps ever, which is where I'm currently at. And then you, baby step 3, you save 3 to 6 months emergencies. And then I think 4 is save for college or pay off your mortgage or something like that. It goes way into detail. I'll leave a link for his channel if you're interested in that. But anywho, that's how I started. When I started budgeting, and I was scared because I didn't have money. I didn't have anything. I didn't know how I was going to pay rent. I started following his steps. So when my budgeting first started, I was doing paycheck to paycheck budget. That is the only thing I did. I listed out all my debt, because that's what he recommends. I listed all my debts. So if you can say, in a way, my first spread was my debt tracker. I laid out all debts. I think it was 23 or 27 debts at the moment, back in December of 2017. It was a lot. I laid it all down. I put the dates that they were due in the smallest to largest order. I did all the minimum payments, and I added it up. I added how much debt I have and how much it took away from me in a monthly progress. And if I can remember, I don't know why, but I remember having like $894 worth of minimum payments. Might have been more or less, but I clearly kind of remember that number in my head clearly. So that is how I started my debt tracker spread. It's just something you have to come to realize that you need to do on your own to figure out that you have a large number that you need to pay off. And the only way you can see that is by laying it out. So that's how my debt tracker started, literally. I think I have, let me see if I can find my planner. I went way back into my planner system, ones that I still had, and I started laying them all out. Now, this is already like in 2018, so, there's not much that, I have. But here we go. Here's a spread. This is my debt tracker spread. I laid them all down, and I had the amounts. And I would add it up here. This one doesn't have the dates because later on I started finding out a monthly calendar view, so we'll talk about that. So that's how my budgeting system kind of started. I started with a debt tracker. I listed everything out, and then I started with paycheck budget spreads. Now, what that was is that I knew I had 2 paychecks every month. I had one every 2 weeks because I still am on I get paid every 2 weeks, or bi-weekly, however you want to say it. And I would list my 4 walls. Like, let me find a spread. I would call them monthly necessities. So I would list out what I needed for that paycheck. So for instance, rent, phone, gas, groceries, and I had Wi-Fi, which I would call cable because it was connected, as my necessity to live. I would take care of that first. So that's how my paycheck budget structure started to happen. Then I would go based on the dates. So if you go up here and you see here, I would write the dates of when this paycheck had to cover. This is the weeks that my paycheck had to cover. And within those weeks felt these bills right here. I would write them down. I would write the date. And then I would add them up. So right here would be the addition. And for a long time, that's all I did. I did my monthly necessities, and then I did my bills, and then I would break down my paycheck. So if you could see down here, I would break down my paycheck into what I needed. And for a long time, I would be in the negative, or I would have like $5 worth of leftover money. And that would be my paycheck spread. And believe it or not, having that $5, leftover was kind of like, okay, I don't have a lot. But I didn't say, well, I'm just going to leave it in my account and because $5 doesn't do anything. No, I actually switched my mentality to saying, you know what, that's $5 more I can add to my debt, which then will pay off $5 off my debt. And then I'll be closer to debt freedom. That's how my mentality changed. I didn't say, well, I'm going to leave it in my bank account because what am I going to do with $5? No, I changed my mentality saying, you know what, that's an additional $5 I can throw at my debt, and then I'll create a debt snowball. And those $5 and then $10 and $20 ended up to what my debt snowball is today, which is about $1,200 to $1,500 a month. So I started off very small and very plain. Like there was nothing in that budget planner that really made anything happen. So I would have my debt tracker and my 2 paycheck budgets. That was my initial spread. Then once I started, figuring things out, I learned that, I really had to visualize what my paydays and my debt really looked in a calendar view. Because then I started thinking, hey, I'm budgeting this out, but stuff comes up. A birthday came up. Someone got married, or I have to do something for work. And I'm just like, oh, like, how do I do this if all my money already has a plan? Like, I just don't know. That's when I started realizing that having a visual for your calendar is very essential. So my calendar view came in. This is the spread. And look at all those bills, you guys. It was so colorful. Like, it was so colorful, you guys. It was insane. Like, I had so many bills. And the thing about this spread, a lot of people might not take this too serious, but this really puts into perspective your payday right here, and then all your bills that you have to get paid before your next paycheck, honestly. So you'd see that and you're like, oh. Like, I see it in my paycheck budget, but I'm like, ooh, I really didn't see it visually. So it really puts a lot into perspective. And then when you see this, when you see a calendar, you're like, oh, you know what? This day I have something important I gotta do. Yeah, I gotta somehow add that to my budget. And I'm like, okay. And if something would come along within the month, I would put it like a little sticker here or a sticker there, and I'd be like, okay, this is what I need to take care of. So then my budgets evolved from being my monthly necessities and my bills to monthly necessity, bills, and miscellaneous. That's how I would categorize it. Right over here. Then I ended up having that miscellaneous section right here. And what that miscellaneous section did was that after I took out my monthly necessities and my budget for my bills, and I had anything left over, I would go ahead and look in this miscellaneous category and see what I could actually take out of my budget. So my budgeting system evolved to having 4 elements: my monthly necessities, my bills, miscellaneous, and the breakdown of that income. And look at that. It was just pen and paper. I had nothing else. Nothing. So that's how I went from a legal pad into a coiled bound planner, because I wanted that monthly view. I needed to see, and it was just like a wake up, like, hey, Erika, the reason why your paycheck to paycheck budgets are not working because you're not seeing the full month as visually as you can. So that's how that started. And that's how I ended up with my monthly spread. Then we come to me realizing that, hey, I'm hearing a lot about sinking funds. I think I want to do that. I think that's something I want to do because I have a lot of birthdays, like January to March, tons of birthdays, and then like October to December, tons of birthdays. So I want to make sure I'm prepping for this because even though I want to cash flow this, I kind of don't have the money to do it. But if I take like $5 or $10 here and there from every paycheck, I will maybe then have something for those special occasions. So that's when I started learning about sinking funds. And to me, basically, sinking funds are like small little savings that you do within your paychecks. So when that day comes, you have the money to throw all of it at it or do what you please with it. But it's short-term goals, you get me? So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So then that's when my sinking fund spread started to become an entity of its own. That's when I started adding to it. But this is the thing about sinking funds, and I want to reiterate this for you guys. Sinking funds are not necessary, and the reason why I say this is because the moment you start feeling that you have space in your budget and you start doing sinking funds, it eats up your income. It really does. Because you're like, well, I want to throw it at this and this and this and this and this. And then when you go into your budget, you're like, oh, well, where's my debt snowball, or where's anything at? It's just been eaten. So I don't recommend sinking funds when you start off, just because when you're starting off, you don't know where to go with your budget. It's a lot of trial and error. At least for me it was, and it's taken me a while, and I'm still tweaking stuff here and there. So right now, I've learned that, hey, I don't need a sinking fund for birthdays. I don't need a sinking fund for other nonsense or for trips or vacation. I just need a sinking fund for medical because I go to the doctors a lot. I have pharmacy pickups and all that stuff. So I do need that as a fund. And car maintenance because my car is old. And there's always something wrong with the tire. I need an oil change, or there's something wrong with it that I need to fix. So I know those two are the major categories that I always need. And I always make sure that I'm able to give that money to those sinking funds without it damaging any of my debt snowball or any other things that might happen in the month. So just know that sinking funds, where they're very tempting to do at the very beginning, just know that it can eat up your income. And if you're not prepared or willing to like see and struggle with that, don't do it. But anywho, that is how sinking funds came to be for my budget. And let me see if I can find when exactly that ended up happening. It ended up happening in April. And a lot of things ended up happening in April. And that was when I collabed with Romina. Right after or during our collab, I learned that she did a month budget. I've never in my life had done a month budget prior to that. I had gone almost half a year not doing a monthly budget. And what that basically is that I would have my debt tracker, I would have my Paycheck 1 and Paycheck 2 budget, and that was it. And then I started adding my sinking funds, right? And then when I did a collab with Romina, I took on her budgeting system. And by the way, we were totally both miserable with that shit. It just didn't work. Her income didn't work the way my income worked, and our budgeting systems just didn't work for each other. But something that I did get out of it was a monthly budget. Now, you would think, I have my paycheck budget, and then I have my calendar. Why do I need a monthly budget? That makes no sense to me. I don't understand why people do that. And I really didn't. That was my mentality. I don't understand why people do that. But when I finally did it for the month of April, and look how this was like my first official like sticker kit, I believe. So this was all her stickers, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna lay this out, and then I'm gonna lay everything out. I was like, okay, I can see that I have so and so much that I need to put into my bills, and so much that I need to put into like my living costs, just normal stuff. And then at the bottom, it would tell me, hey, this is how much you need to make and how much you might actually have for debt. So that is when I started adopting the monthly budget. I started adopting it in April of 2018 because it really did put into perspective your paycheck budget and my calendar view into one. And then when you combined it, you saw, hey, this is how much you're actually needing to make or gonna make to do everything that you need to do in your life for that month. So that is why I started the monthly budgets. But it wasn't until like almost half a year into budgeting that I implemented that part of my budgeting system in it. Then when we now go, we start seeing the weekly check-in. Now the weekly check-in was super brand new to me. I didn't understand it. My mentality was, I put this money in my cash envelope, and when I'm out, that is it. Why do I need to put it in a system? Why do I need to track it? Why? Like, this is so pointless. Like, my money is in that envelope, and that's it. Like, what else is there to track? The tracking is that it's in an envelope, and that's all you got. Well, I quickly figured out that my weekly check-in and my expense tracking, the whole point of it was for me to track habits, behavior, my relationship with my money that I have to spend, and then see a trend to then update or fix or tweak my future budgets. So once I started doing that, I started seeing that certain weeks I was emotionally triggered, or I was basically, my spending differed from when I was working, when I was not working, and that sometimes some months really were heavy spending because there was a lot going on, like birthdays and all that stuff. So it kind of put into perspective like my trends with spending cash that I already had set aside. I learned quickly I'm an emotional spender, you guys. I can look into my month and be like, oh, I know what happened that week. I was having a full down meltdown. So what I did is I went and I spent all my cash envelopes. There's nothing else, so I'm screwed for the rest of the month. So it kind of put into see like, hey, you know, there's times in the month where you're kind of just going off ship and just destroying your budget because you're letting some emotional things affect you, which then leads to overspending or spending everything at once. So that is why I do weekly check-ins now. And that is how my system came to be. So if I go ahead and I show you my current planner, and let's go for June because that's usually how it goes. I have my monthly to show me my bills, my paydays, and my spending habits. That is what I use my monthly calendar for. We have my June budget, or just my monthly budget, to show me what the month will look like entirely. So I'm ready for it. I'm not shocked or anything by it. And then when I'm doing my paycheck budgets, I glance at it because I'm like, you know what? This is what's going on in the month, and I forgot to add it into my paycheck. So it's just a quick reminder like, hey, don't forget that this is happening in the month. Then I have my weekly check-in because your girl does emotional spending. Look at all those negatives. It teaches me that, hey, you need to put the brakes on it. You need to stop. Okay? Your emotions or whatever's going on this month is really affecting your budget, and you need to fix your spending behavior. Then we go on to the paychecks. So every time I get paid, I will break it down, and whatever's left over, I will throw at debt. So I do have my debt tracker right here. And then, of course, I do have my paycheck too, which because I get paid bi-weekly. So I always have that. And then I have my sinking funds as well that I track, which are only 2 currently. So it's a very small, tiny section. And that is it. That is how I came out to be with my spreads. It's just an evolution of what I learned to deal with as I went through my debt-free journey. So since evolving my my budgeting system, a lot of it really is, hey, my debt tracker, because that's what I'm focusing on. That has been the focus for 2.5 years now. It's my debt. So that has always been my first spread, because that is the first thing that they tell you. Write your numbers down. So I hope you guys write your numbers down. And then right at the beginning, it was just paychecks. My debt tracker, my paychecks, monthly bills breakdown. That was it. Then I got my monthly view, and I was like, okay, I really need to see my month as visually as I can. And I was like, so it ended up being monthly necessities, bills, miscellaneous, paycheck breakdown. So now I got a bigger spread of what I really got to worry. Then I got into sinking funds. So then I had a debt tracker, my already paycheck budget spread, and then I'm like, my sinking funds. I gotta get these sinking funds, which, like I said, not very necessary, but if you want to, make sure it's not eating up all your income. Then after collabing, I ended up realizing that a monthly budget is kind of neat to have, because then you get to see visually how your month is going, and numerically, like, hey, these are the numbers you actually need. Like, this is how much you need to make, because this is how much your bills are in total. This is how much your living cost is in total. So here's a whole picture of it. And then my weekly spread came in, and then you're like, okay, girl, you need to figure out why you're spending so much certain weeks, what is triggering you. Keep on track with your cash envelope, because we need to figure out how is it that the money you're putting in there is just disappearing so quickly. And yeah, you guys, that has been how I ended up with my budgeting system. I know it's a lot, but I just wanted to explain to some of you guys how it ended up being, because I didn't just make this from the get-go. I got here progressively, and it can still evolve. Trust me, it does. So yeah, I hope you guys learned a little bit about my budgeting system, how I lay it out. And of course, if you guys are interested in trying out my system, I do now have instant printables on my Etsy shop. You can do the monthly budget if you're interested in it. You can do the weekly check-in if you're interested. Paycheck budgets, print as many as you need. Savings. You can have debt tracker, everything. So if you're interested, I do have these for the 7x9 versions. These can fit in your classic happy planner, or if you have a budgeting binder system, you can go ahead and do that. And I will soon come out with like letter size ones for just your normal big binders. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any other comments or questions about my budgeting spreads and why they came out to be the way they are and why they work for me. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.